In this movie, I'll show you how to manually compensate for the color cast of an image using a color balance adjustment layer. So here I am looking at one of the turtles that I corrected in the previous chapter, subject to a brightness contrast adjustment layer. So here's the original image, and here's the way it looks now. It's obviously in better shape, but it appears to me that we have a kind of yellowish color cast. And so I can confirm whether that's the case or not by selecting my eyedropper tool and then dragging it around in the background. Now, it's anyone's guess what's supposed to be neutral inside this image, but if I drag around back here, you can see that my hue value is jumping around from as low as the 20s right here, 20 degrees that is, to as high as now 68 degrees. And if I go ahead and switch over to my color wheel, you can see that 20 degrees is down here in scarlet territory, and 60 degrees is yellow. So sure enough, it looks like we do have a yellow color cast, but I don't want to get rid of all the yellow in the image because hawksbill turtles do have yellow around their brownish scales. So I can start by trying the auto commands, but notice if I go up to the image menu that auto tone through auto color are dimmed, and that's because I currently have an adjustment layer active. Those commands are only applicable to pixel-based layers. So I'll go ahead and click on the background to make it active, and then I'll go up to the image menu, and I'll start with auto color, since it worked so well in the previous movie, and that just actually sort of depletes some of the color from the image. So I'll press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that change, and then I'll return to the image menu, and I'll try auto tone, which does a pretty good job, but not really good enough. So I'll just go ahead and press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac. Now, it turns out there's a lot of ways to correct color balance inside of Photoshop, but generally a good place to start is color balance. And to add a color balance adjustment layer, you go ahead and click on the black and white circle at the bottom of the layers panel, and then you choose the color balance command. Or if you want to name the layer as you create it, go ahead and bring up the adjustments panel by clicking on its icon, and then go ahead and alt-click or option-click on the second icon in the second row, the one that looks like a little pair of scales. And because you have the Alt or Option key down, that brings up the New Layer dialog box, and I'll just go ahead and call this guy Balance and click OK. Now notice that we have 3 slider bars here inside the Properties panel that are labeled red, green, and blue on the right-hand side, and then we see their color complements, cyan, magenta, and yellow, on the left-hand side. Now, because we have a yellow color cast, we need to move the colors not really toward blue, even though that's the direction we'll be moving the slider, but more accurately away from yellow. So because blue is yellow's color complement, it's going to leach yellow out of the image as we drag the slider handle toward the right-hand side. Now it looks to me like we have too much red in the image, so I'll deplete red by moving this slider triangle towards cyan. And I ultimately came up with the value of -20. And then I decided the image was a little bit too green, so I went ahead and dragged this slider toward magenta, which again is really technically away from green. Now, color balance doesn't really give you the most scientific controls, so you are going to have to make some subjective decisions, and you may find yourself bouncing back and forth a lot. In the end, I decided to take this yellow-blue value down to +20, and I like a magenta-green value of -20, but I want to take this cyan-red value farther down to -40, let's say. And I end up with this modification right here, and you can confirm whether it's any good or not, either by clicking on the eye in front of the balance layer here inside the Layers panel, or you can click this eyeball at the bottom of the Properties panel. So this is what the image looked like before. This is what it looks like now. You also have this Preserve Luminosity checkbox. If you turn it off, we're going to darken up the image ever so slightly. If you turn it back on, the image appears brighter. So it's really up to you whether you want that checkbox on or off. Notice also that we have this tone control. Right now it's set to midtones. So in other words, we're correcting the colors of the midtones. But it looks to me like we've got some problems in the shadows as well. Notice if I click this dark area on the creature's shell, I'm going to see a hue value of 314 degrees. And that is way over here in this magenta territory. It should be something closer to brown. So I'll go ahead and switch back over to my image at hand, and I'll change the tone option to shadows. And then I went ahead and took the magenta green control up to +20, and I took the yellow blue control down to -5. And I'm making these modifications using the arrow keys. So you can either press just the up or down arrow key, or you can press Shift along with an arrow key to modify a value in increments of 10. And then finally, I went ahead and switched the tone option to highlights. And I clicked in this yellow-blue setting right there, and I pressed Shift up arrow a total of 3 times in order to increase that value to plus 30. And I ended up with this version of the image right here. So just to see what we've been able to achieve here, I'll go ahead and turn that layer off. That is the original color cast of the image. And then if I turn the adjustment layer back on, we see the new colors inside the image. And again, it's a subjective modification. You might very well come up with different settings. But that is at least one way to manually adjust the color cast of an image using a color balance adjustment layer here inside Photoshop.